A wicked landlord humiliates the elderly. When Keanu Reeves intervenes, the woman's begging behavior changes. Before we continue, please let us know where you are watching from. Lisa, a 65-year-old widow who had lived in her modest apartment for decades, stood trembling in the building's dim hallway. Despite living alone on a fixed income and stretching every penny to pay rent and keep warm in the chilly winter, everything changed when Mr. Carter, the stern and uncompromising landlord, glared at her. "Lisa, you are late on your rent," he said. "I don't care about your excuses. This apartment is no longer yours. Pack up and leave now." Lisa's voice, weathered from years of silent resilience, quivered with her plea. "Please, Mr. Carter. I've done everything I can to save money and pay on time. I only need a little more time." But Mr. Carter's heart was cold as the stone walls around them. He snapped, "Time is money, and you're overdue. I'm not running a charity," and began with 2 workers by his side. Lisa gathered her stuff, including a fading quilt, novels, and photographs from brighter times. Lisa, isolated for years, clutched her few possessions outside the bitter winter wind. Neighbors looked through closed doors with sympathy but fear of retribution. She whispered, "How will I survive now?" Unbeknownst to her, a man was present. A worn hoodie. Keanu Reeves, on a personal quest to understand real-life struggles and reconnect with humanity, sat quietly on a nearby bench. He had come to this neighborhood disguised in simplicity, but the injustice he witnessed struck a deep chord. Keanu Reeves believed in the power of empathy and had been walking the streets as an ordinary man in faded jeans and a hoodie. His goal was to witness real struggles and learn from them. As he watched Lisa's heart-wrenching eviction, he felt a surge of determination and remembered his role as a character who had faced loss and isolation. Keanu scribbled a few notes in a small battered notebook. He couldn't ignore the pain in Lisa's eyes nor the bitter injustice of a system that discarded a 65-year-old woman who had given so much of her life to persevere on her own. He thought of all the times he had wished for someone to reach out during his own moments of despair. Now here was his chance to be that someone for someone else. Determined, he stood up slowly and moved toward the scene. As he neared the gathered onlookers, he noticed the hesitant, sorrowful faces of the neighbors. In their eyes he saw silent pleas for help and change. Without hesitation he resolved to act, not for fame or recognition, but to restore a measure of dignity to a life that had long been overlooked. His calm, steady gaze was fixed on Lisa, who was cradling her few belongings as if they were all she had left. With each step he felt the heavy burden of the world shift just a little as hope began to spark in the midst of despair. As he reached the group, he addressed Mr. Carter directly, his voice calm but carrying an undeniable firmness. "Excuse me, sir," Keanu said, standing face to face with the landlord. "Lisa is more than simply a tenant. She is a human being who has dedicated her life to this community." Mr. Carter responded sharply, "Who are you to interfere? This is a business, not a charity case." Keanu's eyes softened, indicating real concern. "I've experienced both positive and negative aspects of life. Have you ever been left with nothing? Imagine the fear and loneliness of being cast out despite your best efforts." With a tinge of remorse in his eyes, Mr. Carter's steely demeanor drew the attention of bystanders and neighbors who had long endured stillness. The air was dense with the promise of change. Lisa, trembling but determined, stepped forward to ask for the decency she deserves after a lifetime of working hard and surviving on her own. Keanu added that rules and policies are important, but they must serve people rather than crush them. We all have moments when life gets unbearably hard, and today you have the opportunity to make a difference rather than detract from it. Mr. Carter's FAOD started to disintegrate. The clash served as a call to reassess corporate practices when lives were at stake, rather than a show of force. Mr. Carter, visibly shaken, fumbled for his phone and dialed a number to reach someone with authority over the building. A measured voice answered, "Yes, it's Mr. Carter. I need to discuss an urgent tenant situation." Mr. Carter's words were halting and laced with uncertainty and remorse. The crowd watched in silence as his harsh tone softened. He admitted in a whisper that he never intended to hurt anyone. He was taught to see tenants as numbers, but now he sees a person who deserves a chance. A sleek dark vehicle approached the building. A well-dressed man entered the building and addressed everyone with authority. He introduced himself as Mr. Daniels and stated that he was the rightful owner of the building. He then turned to Mr. Carter and expressed disappointment with the treatment of one of the tenants. Lisa's eyes widened in disbelief and hope, mixed with trepidation. Mr. Daniels assured Lisa that every resident deserves to be treated with respect and dignity, and that he would review and adjust all rental practices to ensure fairness. Mr. Carter's defiance faded, and the promise of redemption took root not only for the landlord but also for the entire community. Keanu's reassuring words about admitting mistakes and acting with kindness and understanding resonated with everyone present, including Lisa, who shed tears and whispered, "All I ask for is a little compassion after a lifetime of struggle." The coldness of the day began to thaw. The building's common space was transformed into an impromptu forum, where inhabitants shared their tales and dreams. The faint flickering lights and soft murmur of people produced a melancholy yet hopeful ambience, inspiring courage to dream of better days. Mr. Daniels, standing at the front, addressed the tenants with measured warmth. "This building is more than simply a structure, it represents a community. Tonight, we begin to rebuild not only our houses but also our spirits." Mr. Carter, once seen as a symbol of indifference, stepped forward with remorse. He admitted to causing hurt and promised to work with everyone to make things right. Lisa, who had been pushed to the fringes, discovered her voice after a lifetime of standing alone. Despite her frailty, she stated, "I'm not just a statistic." Lisa's thoughts inspired other renters to share their own experiences of struggle and feeling invisible. Stories of struggle, loss, and quiet perseverance. Keanu, who had been mostly an observer, addressed the group with a message of hope and resilience. He recalled the building's past as a true community, and a middle-aged resident emphasized the importance of fairness in their lives. The council aims to promote justice and openness. Ideas flowed readily. The community can benefit from a shared calendar of events, financial assistance programs, and open communication at regular meetings. The old structure, previously a symbol of neglect, is gradually being transformed into a beacon of solidarity. This transition was palpable in the room surrounded by fellow residents. Lisa experienced warmth and a sense of community for the first time in years. She no longer felt alone in the hallways of despair. In the weeks that followed, the building and the lives within it began to change in remarkable ways. Mr. Daniels kept his promise and new fair rental policies replaced harsh practices. Mr. Carter, committed to making amends, spent his days working alongside tenants to restore the building. The once frigid corridors now echoed with laughter, shared meals, and heartfelt conversations. Lisa's transformation was profound, as she became a leader within the newly formed tenant council. She addressed her neighbors with a soft but resolute voice in an early morning meeting in the renovated community room, recognizing that everyone has the right to dignity and respect. Her words inspired many. There was an evident spark of hope. On a cool evening, the sun set behind the skyline. Lisa sat on a seat outside the building, her hands and eyes worn from years of hard work. With gratitude, she opened a nicely addressed mail containing a letter with a familiar signature, K, inside. She found a note of encouragement and a set of keys. The note stated, "Dear Lisa, your courage and strength have inspired me. Please accept these keys as a symbol of a new beginning. May you find serenity and warmth in your new home, and continue to shine brightly." Keanu's eyes welled with tears as she grasped the keys for years. Lisa felt abandoned by the world, but owing to one man's intervention and a community's embrace, she was given hope for a better tomorrow with the support of the tenant council and compassionate neighbors. Lisa moved into a new apartment with warm light, kind walls, and the promise of renewal. She thanked Keanu for his compassion, which had changed her life and sparked hope throughout the community. The old poor mother, who had been cast aside, now stood at the beginning of a new day. Turn on alerts to never miss an update. See you in the next one.